golden light of a late autumn afternoon bathed the brick-paved streets of Brooklyn Heights, casting a nostalgic glow over everything it touched. Ethan Moreau pulled his sleek black Range Rover up to a 3-story federal statue townhouse with a red brick facade and crisp white window frames. He remained inside for a moment, staring at the building, as if trying to convince himself that he had truly come back. The house was the last inheritance from his grandfather, Richard Moreau, a revered philanthropist in New York's upper circles. And now, Ethan had a plan to turn it into the crown jewel of his luxury boutique hotel chain. Every detail had been accounted for: prime location, rich history, unmatched profit potential. Adjusting his tie and shrugging into a tailored gray wool coat, he stepped out of the car. Each footfall echoed against the marble steps like a knock on the door of memory. Ethan wasn't used to fear, yet something about this house, the weight of its memories, its silence, unsettled him in ways no business deal ever had. But as his hand touched the old brass doorknob, a flicker of hesitation passed through his eyes. Deep down, he sensed this house wouldn't surrender so easily. The door was unlocked. Ethan frowned, pushed it open, and was immediately hit by a familiar scent. Oil paint, old wood, and coffee. Not the smell of an abandoned property. This was the smell of a place being lived in, fully and presently. From somewhere inside, music played, a fusion of jazz and classical violin. He walked down the oak-floored hallway, where the late sunlight slanted in long, golden streaks across the floor. The house wasn't silent. His pulse quickened as he stepped into the main room, a high-ceilinged living space with French windows that overlooked the backyard. And there, like something out of a dream, stood a woman painting on the floor. Her hair was tied up loosely, with a few rebellious strands falling around her cheeks. She wore an oversized men's shirt, sleeves rolled, its hem streaked with paint. Barefoot, fully immersed in the canvas before her, a glowing, dreamlike rendering of New York at sunset. "Excuse me, what are you doing in my house?" Ethan's voice was calm but razor sharp. The woman turned, meeting his icy gaze with warm brown eyes. Unafraid, unapologetic. She set her brush down and stood as if stepping out of the painting itself. "Your house?" She arched a brow. "There must be some major misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Ethan replied, pulling out his phone. "I'm the new owner, Ethan Moreau, and unless you leave, I'll be calling my attorney." She laughed, not pleasantly, but with a short, cutting sound. "My name is Sofia Delgado," she said, her voice as even as a river's flow. "And I've been living here, legally, for the past 15 years. Seems you're the intruder here." Ethan wasn't used to being challenged, especially not inside a space he believed was his. "How can you live here without anyone knowing?" he asked, voice low and controlled. Sofia crossed her arms, her gaze steady. "My father, Javier Delgado, was Richard Moreau's house manager. He was granted lifetime residence, and I inherited that right after he passed, all legally documented." Ethan narrowed his eyes, his face tightening. He stepped out of the living room and immediately called his lawyer. Meanwhile, Sofia returned to her half-finished painting, unbothered, as if the confrontation had never happened. "Where's this agreement?" he asked when he returned. "My attorney's office holds the original. I can provide a copy if you'd like." "I would," he said flatly. "You'll be disappointed," she added, eyes still on the canvas. "This house has memory. It won't easily become some lifeless boutique hotel." Ethan gave a dry laugh. "Memories don't pay the bills. I know how to turn them into profit." Her eyes lifted to meet his, unwavering. "Some things aren't for sale. You should know that, Moreau." Silence stretched between them. The soft hum of jazz continued from a small Bluetooth speaker. Ethan exhaled, feeling something unfamiliar creeping in. Emotion. He had sparred with Wall Street billionaires, but this barefoot painter with defiant eyes was knocking him off course. "You'll have to leave," he said again, but this time it sounded less certain. Sofia only shrugged, dipping her brush into red paint. A car pulled up at the front door. The lawyer had arrived. "You should start packing," Ethan Moreau warned. I'll have you evicted before the weekend." Sofia Delgado smiled, slowly, confidently, in a way that sent a chill down his spine. "Your grandfather was a wise man, Ethan Moreau. It's a shame you didn't inherit that." The lawyer stepped into the courtyard, drenched in sweat under the midday sun. In his hand was a manila envelope. "Mr. Moreau, we have a problem." Ethan snatched the envelope and pulled out the documents. His face turned pale as he read. "What the hell is this?" he whispered, staring at Sofia in disbelief. She raised an eyebrow, her smile widening. The ownership certificate bore two names, Ethan Moreau and Sofia Delgado. The Rosewood Hotel suite glowed under the golden hue of sunset. Ethan Moreau loosened his tie as he looked down at the city from the balcony. Below, the rooftops and bell towers of Brooklyn Heights were bathed in a brilliant orange light. Beautiful. Profitable. His, or so he thought. "That document is real," confirmed Attorney Zamora from inside the room. "Sofia Delgado is listed as co-owner." "Must have been my grandfather," Ethan muttered, draining his glass of whiskey. "He must have changed the will near the end. No way. He'd never do that." "But he did." Zamora wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. "However, I have a few contacts in the court. We could file a petition to contest the will, on grounds of mental incapacity during its signing." The suggestion hung in the air like a sweet, dangerous poison, tempting, yet deadly. "Do it," Ethan ordered after a brief hesitation, "and find out everything about Sofia Delgado. I want to know exactly who I'm up against." The next morning, Sofia woke from a dream of icy blue eyes watching her from the shadows. She stretched as Max, her dog, jumped on the bed and nuzzled against her. "We have an intruder, Max," she whispered, stroking his warm fur. "But we're not giving up, are we?" She stepped into the kitchen to make coffee and noticed something strange. No power. The fridge, the lights, everything was off. "No way," she murmured, instantly realizing what was happening. Less than an hour later, Sofia stormed into the Rosewood Hotel lobby like a tropical storm. Her yellow dress billowed as she strode past wealthy guests without sparing them a glance. "Ma'am, you can't," the receptionist tried to stop her, but it was too late. Sofia had already pressed the button for the penthouse elevator. Her sandals slapped against the marble floor as her heart pounded in her chest. Ethan was wrapping up a video call when he heard the knocking. No, not knocking, kicking. He opened the door and came face to face with a furious Sofia, hair loose, cheeks flushed. "Cutting the power? Really?" she snapped, pushing past him into the room. "Is your strategy to ruin my food and steal my hot water?" Ethan remained calm, secretly amused at how fiery she looked when angry. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said flatly. "Maybe you forgot to pay your bills." "Liar!" Sofia hurled a sandal at him, barely missing his head. "The power company said it was you. Your name was on the request." Ethan couldn't help but admire her passion. It was nothing like the cold politeness of the women he usually met. She was pure fire. "No resorting to violence," he said, picking up the sandal. "Interesting legal strategy." Sofia took a deep breath. "Listen, rich boy, I've lived in that house for 15 years. I grew up within those walls. I'm not going anywhere just because some businessman thinks he's royalty." Something in her voice made Ethan pause. It wasn't just defiance, it was real love for that home. "Your father," he began, remembering the files Zamora had shown him. "He was the gardener, wasn't he?" "The gardener, the caretaker, and your grandfather's friend," she corrected with pride. "A man who earned every inch of that land with sweat and loyalty, not with the name Moreau or some legal papers." Their eyes met, a spark unmistakably passed between them, and for a moment, Ethan forgot why they were fighting. "The power will be back today," he finally said, "but that doesn't change anything. The house will become a hotel." "We'll see about that," Sofia replied, picking up her sandal. "You don't know me, Moreau. You have no idea what I'm capable of." 3 days later, Ethan found out exactly what Sofia was capable of. The court had denied his petition to have her evicted from the property. The reason? 28 sworn statements from neighbors confirmed that Sofia was a legal resident, well known and respected in the community for years. "This is absurd," Ethan grumbled in Attorney Zamora's office. "So now public opinion matters more than legal ownership?" The lawyer avoided his gaze, clearly uncomfortable. "This is Brooklyn Heights, sir. Small communities operate differently. And it seems Ms. Delgado is well loved." Ethan clenched his fists. Every day spent in this hotel was draining his money, while the project remained at a frustrating standstill. "There's more," Zamora added, hesitating. "She gave an interview this morning on Radio Brooklyn Heights. She said, you deliberately cut her power and water to drive her out." She was attacking his reputation, and reputation was the most fragile asset in the Moreau empire, the very foundation his companies were built on. That night, unable to sleep, Ethan sat down to review his grandfather's old documents. Buried among faded receipts and correspondence, he found something unfamiliar. A sealed envelope, the handwriting shaky but unmistakable. "To my grandson when the time comes." The paper crackled as he broke the seal. His grandfather Richard Moreau's words, written just months before his passing, seemed to dance on the page. "My dear Ethan, if you're reading this, I assume you've already met Sofia Delgado. You must be confused, angry even. The Moreaus aren't used to sharing what we believe is ours, are we? But that house isn't just walls and land. It's memory, it's life. Sofia grew up there while you chose European boarding schools. She watered every bougainvillea your grandmother loved, while you collected degrees and assets. Don't repeat my mistake. I spent a lifetime building an empire and forgot to build a home. With all my love, Grandfather, Richard." Ethan dropped the letter, the floor beneath him seeming to shift. Then he noticed the postscript, scrawled faintly in the corner. "There's something important you need to know about Sofia's father." "Sofia's father?" Ethan flipped the paper over, but there was no further detail. Just that one haunting line echoing in his mind like a buzzing whisper. "There's something," and the name Sofia was written with such tenderness, in strokes as soft as a memory. Brooklyn Heights gleamed brighter than usual that evening. Papered lanterns hung above Montague Street, and streamers danced between weathered wooden balconies. The annual art fair had transformed the quiet neighborhood into a vibrant stage. Sofia was hanging her piece, Sunset over Manhattan Bridge, one of her personal favorites, when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Impressive. I thought you only painted in silence." She turned, and of course it was him, Ethan Moreau. No tie, no blazer, a white button-down rolled at the sleeves, and ash-gray jeans. He blended into the crowd like he hadn't stormed into her life like a thunderclap. "Didn't think you'd show your face here," Sofia said, her tone soft but laced with thorns. "Just observing," Ethan shrugged. "I need to feel the foundation of where I'm building next." Sofia shook her head, a half-smile curling on her lips. "Still trying to reshape the world in your image?" "And you're not?" he shot back, glancing at her paintings. "Same game, different tools. Watercolor instead of concrete." In that moment, something shifted. The edge in their words softened. The space between them held something unspoken. An undeniable pull neither wanted to name. Live jazz floated down the street, blending with brass instruments. A voice boomed from the speakers. "And now, as tradition demands, the artists will open the dance." Cheers erupted. Then came the familiar voice of Mr. Frank, the longest-standing gallery owner in Brooklyn Heights. "Delgado, time to dance." Sofia blinked. "No, No escaping," Ethan said, extending his hand. "What do you think you're doing?" "During trouble. I seem to be good at it." She hesitated, but placed her hand in his. The dance floor was a cleared space in the street, its old cobblestones glowing under warm string lights. With the crowd clapping and music swelling, they began to move. No one led, no one followed, just rhythm and a strange electric harmony between opposites. Sofia didn't know why her feet matched his. Ethan didn't know why his breath felt lighter than it had in weeks. They turned. One slow step, one closer beat, The distance between them faded. Ethan whispered, barely audible, "You always throw me off balance." Sofia looked up. "Then I must be doing my job right." No smirk, no wink, just eye contact. And in that breathless second, Ethan leaned in, lips brushing hers, slow and deliberate, like fire wrapped in velvet. A breeze passed through. The lanterns swayed. They pulled apart, breathing harder, not from the dance, but from something that had defied all logic. Just before dawn, Sofia was sketching furiously in the courtyard, trying to erase the memory of Ethan's hand on her waist. Max curled up at her feet. Then the doorbell rang. She walked over to open it and froze. Standing in front of her was an extraordinarily beautiful woman. Tall, blonde, dressed in a designer outfit, her lips painted a flawless shade of red. "You must be Sofia Delgado," the woman said, her voice smooth, unmistakably Manhattan. "Depends on who's asking." The woman removed her sunglasses. "I'm Cassandra Varela." Sofia instantly recognized the name, not just Ethan's ex, but the heiress to one of New York's biggest real estate empires. "He didn't mention me." Cassandra smiled, her eyes scanning every flicker of reaction on Sofia's face. "He didn't mention there was anyone," Sofia replied coolly. Cassandra reached into her purse and produced a thick envelope. "I'm not here to stake a claim. Sofia, I'm here to warn you." Sofia opened it. Inside was a copy of a multi-million-dollar funding agreement tied to the Moreau Foundation. If the townhouse wasn't converted into a hotel by December, the entire grant would be withdrawn. "Now, do you understand?" Cassandra tilted her head. "You're not just up against Ethan, you're up against his entire world, a world that knows how to swallow little artists like you whole without even chewing." Sofia folded the papers, her voice no longer soft. "Then congratulations, you've just made me even more determined to stay." That evening, rain began to fall in a steady mist. Sofia had just finished a new painting when the lights flickered and then went out completely. She frowned, checked the breaker. Everything was fine, no power, no Wi-Fi. The fridge had stopped humming. She knew instantly, this wasn't a glitch. A clap of thunder echoed as she opened the front door and spotted a soggy envelope sitting on the top step. No return address. Inside, a buyout offer. 3 times market value if she'd vacated the property within 72 hours. But the worst hadn't happened yet. An hour later, checking her late father's old study, Sofia found the safe cracked open. The room was in disarray, the window wide, all her important documents gone, including the original will of Richard Moreau, which had stated her family's lifelong right to live there. She called Ethan, her voice trembling. "Someone broke in." When Ethan arrived, they stood in silence in the ransacked room, the floor damp with rainwater. "Who do you think did this?" he asked, staring out the open window. "There's only one person who knew I kept the will here," she said quietly. "My lawyer, and Cassandra." Ethan turned, his face hardening. "She lied about being my fiancé. What else is she capable of?" The air between them shifted, no longer adversarial, but aligned against a common threat. Then Sofia slowly approached an old painting hanging askew on the wall. She lifted it, revealing a small hollow carved into the brick. Inside, a rusted metal box. "I've never opened it," she whispered. "My father said only to do so if the house was ever truly in danger." Ethan held his breath as Sofia turned the rusted lock. Click, the lid popped open. Inside were faded photographs, worn letters, and a red-sealed envelope with a handwritten note. The final will of Richard Moreau, to be opened only in the presence of both Sofia Delgado and Ethan Moreau. They looked at each other, stunned, confused. "How could he have known?" Sofia whispered. No way," Ethan cut in, his hand trembling as he began to break the seal. The newly updated will, clearly notarized, slipped out of the envelope and unfolded across the table. Ethan read aloud, his voice growing raspier with each line. I, Richard Moreau, in full sound mind, hereby leave my entire estate in Brooklyn Heights to Sofia Delgado, daughter of Javier Delgado. Sofia's mouth fell open. The house now belonged to her, on the condition that she does not sell or alter the structure of the home for a period of 5 years from the date of my death. Her heart nearly stopped. The house was truly hers. But Ethan continued reading. His voice trembled as he reached the final lines. For I hope that she will come to understand why this home has always meant so much to the Moreau family. A silence settled between them. Then came the sentence that left them both frozen. Javier Delgado was not only my gardener and dearest friend, Ethan read, his voice faltering. He was my illegitimate son. My blood. He looked up, stunned. This means, he continued, barely able to finish, Sofia Delgado is my legal granddaughter and your cousin. The paper slipped from Ethan's hand. Sofia staggered backward, her hand reaching for support. The room felt suspended in time. Old, scattered pieces suddenly clicked into place. The odd gifts from Richard, the unexplained birthday cards, his watchful fatherly gaze. We're related? Sofia whispered in disbelief. Cousins, Ethan confirmed, pale, running a hand through his tangled hair. That kiss, the one filled with hunger and heat, now turned into a deep, stinging wound. Sofia dropped into a chair, as if the weight of generations had landed on her shoulders. Her tears fell soundlessly, but inside her, something shattered. Years of unanswered questions finally given shape, and pain. All this time, my father knew, but he never told me. And my grandfather tried to tell me in that letter, Ethan murmured, his vision blurring with emotion. A deafening clap of thunder made the lights flicker, then die completely. The room fell into darkness. In that darkness, Ethan followed the sound of Sofia's breath, moving toward her. They didn't touch. But the distance between them, the silence, said everything. Their battle had never truly been about property. It was about identity, about belonging, about a buried bond hidden beneath generations of inheritance, pride, and pain. You were never alone, he whispered, his eyes locked on her face. You've always been a Moreau. Sofia looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. And you? You never understood that this was never about bricks or land, she said softly. It was about the feeling of finally belonging somewhere. The confession hovered in the air between them unfinished, like a promise never fully spoken. Outside, the rain began to ease. A doorbell broke the silence. Sofia wiped her tears and walked downstairs. She opened the door and froze. Cassandra Varela, impeccably dressed, as if the rain hadn't dared to touch her. Behind her stood a cluster of reporters, cameras, and microphones pointed directly at the entrance. Sofia Delgado, Cassandra said, her smile syrupy sweet. We're here to share breaking news. The national press wants a word with the woman accused of impersonation of deceiving the Moreau family. Flashbulbs exploded like artificial lightning. The rain had faded to a thin curtain of mist, but the flashes from the cameras made the entire scene feel blinding and suffocating. Is it true you forged documents to seize the Moreau estate? One reporter shouted. Did you have an inappropriate relationship with Mr. Richard Moreau to manipulate him into changing his will? Another voice cut in like a dagger. Sofia stumbled back, stunned and wounded. Words failed her. But Cassandra Varela stood tall like royalty, her triumphant smile unwavering. Then, someone stepped from the shadows behind Sofia. Ethan. He positioned himself between her and the crowd like a wall of steel. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice low and commanding, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you've all been misled. Cassandra's face went pale. Ethan, what are you doing? You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, he interrupted, pulling a folded document from his inner jacket pocket. This is my grandfather's final will, officially notarized. It confirms that Sofia Delgado is the sole legal heir to the Brooklyn Heights estate. A wave of gasps surged through the press. Microphones and cameras swung toward Ethan. But he wasn't done. "One more thing," he said, looking straight into the lens. "We also have evidence that Varela Developments, Cassandra's family company, attempted to sabotage the Moreau legacy by manipulating the media and bribing local officials. Reporters erupted. Flashbulbs exploded. Cassandra went ghost-wide, swarmed by a barrage of questions and blinding lights. Amid the chaos, Ethan took Sofia's hand and gently pulled her back inside, slamming the door shut behind them. They stood in the entryway, breathing hard, like survivors of a storm. "Why did you do that?" Sofia whispered, her voice still shaky with disbelief. Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then answered softly, "Because it was the right thing to do, and because I'm tired of fighting." A sacred silence fell between them. The bloodline that had once separated them now felt like a faded line, blurred by truth, scorched by honesty, and burned away by something deeper. "I need time," Sofia finally said, "to understand all of this." Ethan nodded. No begging, no excuses. He turned, his hand on the doorknob. "Ethan," she called out just as he was about to leave. He turned back. "Thank you." A small smile appeared. And then he vanished into the mist. In the days that followed, Brooklyn Heights slowly returned to its usual rhythm. But for Sofia, the world had shifted forever. She spent hours going through old photographs, searching for traces of Richard Moreau in her father's eyes, and sometimes even in her own reflection. Headlines about Cassandra's failed scheme dominated the local news. The investigation confirmed it was Varela Developments behind the manipulation, hoping Ethan and Sofia would destroy each other. Ethan never returned to the estate, but he didn't leave Brooklyn either. He rented a small room in the historic district, juggling media fallout while, quietly, waiting. Then, one afternoon, Sofia received a message from him. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the house, we need to talk." She stared at it for a moment, then typed her reply, "I'll be there." The next morning, the sky was unusually clear, as if Brooklyn Heights itself was rinsing away the storm of the past days. Sofia stood in the courtyard of the estate, where everything had begun. Around her were half-finished canvases, and Max, her loyal ginger dog, curled up at her feet. Footsteps echoed. Ethan appeared at the gate. No suit this time, just a plain white shirt, dark jeans, and eyes softened by days of chaos. "You look different," Sofia said. "I feel different," Ethan replied, his gaze drifting toward the scattered paintings. "So, why did you ask me to come?" "Because I want you to see this," she said, leading him to a table in the courtyard where a legal document lay open. "Certification of validity, final will," Ethan murmured as he read. "So, this house really is yours now?" "Yes," she nodded. "But there's a condition. I can't sell or alter the structure for 5 years." They looked at each other, no longer opponents, but two people bearing matching scars. "What do you plan to do with it?" Ethan asked. "I used to dream of opening an art space," Sofia said, walking over to a canvas still in progress. "Not just for me, but for young artists who don't have a place to start." Ethan's eyes lit up. "The ground floor has great light. If you take down the west wall, you could open up a bigger gallery space." "I thought the same," she smiled softly. "I've imagined every corner already." For the first time, they spoke as allies. No lawyers, no threats, only dreams, gently taking shape. "There's one more thing," Sofia said, pulling out a folder. "I looked into my family history." Ethan paused. "My father wasn't Richard Moreau's biological son." The air grew still. "He was the son of Richard's best friend, a man who died young. Your grandfather adopted my father as his own." So, Ethan looked at her. "There's no blood relation between us," Sofia said softly. "That kiss wasn't a mistake." Sofia nodded, her eyes steady on his. "I have the birth certificate, handwritten letters, and official confirmation from city records." The words fell between them, part relief, part quiet invitation. A door had just opened. The next morning, the sky was strangely clear. Sofia stood in the living room, holding a fresh set of architectural sketches printed on tracing paper. On the table beside her lay a stack of legal documents, open, waiting to be signed. Ethan walked in, sleeves rolled, stripped of his usual boardroom polish. He saw her, and his gaze softened. "You asked me here for a reason." Sofia took a deep breath, then handed him the plans. "This is a draft for a community art center, part gallery, part creative space. I want to turn this house into something bigger than me, bigger than memories." Ethan took the papers, his eyes scanning the design. Sunlight flooding the rooms, original architecture preserved but repurposed with intention. A piece of the past transformed into a place for others. "And what part do I play in this plan?" he asked quietly. Sofia met his gaze. "You have two choices. Go back to Manhattan, to the life you've always known. Or stay. Build something new with me." Silence settled between them, not of conflict, but of anticipation. An offer. An invitation. A beginning. 3 months later, Brooklyn Heights shimmered with light for the grand opening of the Delgado Moreau Art House. Under soft paper lanterns, Sofia stood beside Ethan in an olive silk dress, hand in hand. A newly carved wooden sign read, "Delgado Moreau Art House, Est, 2025. Inside, art from the community filled the rooms, vivid, raw, and deeply rooted. Sofia's work took center stage, a sweeping portrait of the house itself, from ruin to rebirth. As the final applause faded and guests gathered in the backyard with glasses of wine and soft jazz playing, Ethan stepped onto the small stage. He held a microphone, but his eyes were locked on only one person. "There's something still unfinished," he said, voice steady and warm. Sofia froze as he dropped to one knee, pulling a velvet blue box from his jacket pocket. "I came here to reclaim a house, but you are the place I want to come home to." She covered her mouth, eyes welling with tears. "Sofia Delgado, will you keep building this home with me?" No more applause, no more music, just one whispered word, "Yes." Behind them, the lights of the house glowed brighter. This time, not just the beginning of a project. As the last guests departed and the city shifted into twilight, they remained in the backyard, the same space where they once argued, and where their first kiss changed everything. "I used to think I wanted a hotel," Ethan murmured, "but it turns out what I was really looking for was a home." Sofia leaned her head on his shoulder, her heart finally steady after years of unrest. Behind them, warm light spilled from the windows. A house, once a battlefield, now a sanctuary.